Hello and welcome back to our show. I am so excited for today's guest. We have the beautiful Kayleigh Clement, who is a personal trainer and coach, and I really love the message that she's sharing with the world. And she has so much wisdom around kind of going to the gym and what it is to be a woman, to build confidence and really supporting her clients. So I'm really excited to kind of dive in today. If you know my journey, you know that this is something that I am very passionate about. It's a topic that really means a lot to me, and I'm seeing more and more as I kind of delve deeper into the self-love world and kind of growing my own body and my own self-image. So this is going to be a real deep dive into kind of how to approach the gym, how to kind of take your health journey to the next level, or maybe if you're just at the beginning of your health journey and the fitness journey, just maybe easing some of those maybe concerns or anxieties that you may have about going to the gym. So I'm so excited to have you here, Kayleigh. Thank you so much for jumping on today.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So what I'd love to get straight into it. And I'd kind of just in terms of for our listeners' sake, can you share with us a little bit about your journey in terms of your gym journey? Like where did it all begin? Were you somebody that was just like, I just want to go to the gym and I have this confidence, or did it grow over time?
Definitely grew over time. I am quite lucky, I will say that my parents drilled into me from quite a young age. We need to look after our health in some shape or form, whether that's going out for a walk daily, whether that's going out for a run, whether it's making sure you're getting your veggies in. I just remember from a very young age, my parents were quite health conscious in that sense. So I was really into athletics throughout school, my younger years, even secondary school. I started cross country, so I used to run for my school. I used to swim for my school as well. Don't do either of that now. And I suppose when I got to university, I started thinking more along the lines of the way that I looked. So it kind of shifted from this is kind of what I've been taught so far, this is what I know so far, but now I have access to a gym and now I can focus on the way that I look. And that's kind of where I went from there. I wouldn't say that it was a healthy shift by any means. I definitely think media, like the music videos that you watched on channels, the music videos that you used to see shape my perception of how I should look. And then I started focusing on that when I was at the gym. I definitely was someone who focused on cardio to begin with when I didn't have a clue that I should have been lifting weights to achieve the goals that I wanted to achieve. So I was going to the gym about 3, 4 times a week, literally just hopping on a cardio machine for like 30 minutes to an hour at a time. And I was like, right, okay, I'm done now. That's me done. And I just wasn't getting to where I wanted. I then made a couple of friends in uni who were guys, and if we go back like 10 was about 10, 12 years ago, the gyms were pretty much dominated by males, especially the weight section. So for me to have made guy mates, it was a lot easier for me, I would say, to transition to the weights area because they kind of took me under their wing and helped me. I wouldn't say that I had good form whatsoever. I didn't have any knowledge on the days that I'd go without them. I was definitely performing exercises wrong, but it was definitely a start.
That's so interesting. And was it when you talk about this shift, because you were like, oh, that it was, I knew that I wanted to shift how I looked. What made you think, oh, it's weights then? Like, what made you, was it the guy's influence on you, or like, what was it that was like that turning point?
Do you know what? I can't quite remember the exact thing that made me realize, oh, this is what I need to start doing. I think I might have just got Instagram when I first got to uni because it wasn't anywhere near as big back then as it is now. And I think I followed a couple of influencers and they were posting their workouts and it was weightlifting. And I think that's where I thought, oh, they're women, they're in the weight section and they're lifting weights and they look, how I'd like to look. They've got curves, they look strong. And I think that is what influenced me towards that. And because I had my guy friends there at the gym, I suppose I had a little bit more confidence to push me through those doors. I would say that to start with, I definitely did not go if they weren't going. There was definitely a little bit of gym anxiety there. But I am very lucky that they did take me under their wing and help me get to where I am now. I would say that that played a huge part in my fitness journey.
Mm. And you mentioned something really interesting. You said like you started seeing other women that like kind of had
Mhm.
the body that you wanted. Did your perception of like what beauty was change during that time, or was it always did you always want like a strong, curvaceous body? Because I know for me personally, like I wanted like the skinny, like that was the
Yeah.
thing that I was aspiring to. So for me, it was like, oh, I'm gonna run as much as I can, I'm gonna burn as many calories as I can, I'm gonna eat as little as I can to stay and maintain in this beauty skinny figure. And was that the same was that the same for you or was it different?
No, it was, I would say it was definitely the same. I went through different phases. So when I first started weightlifting in my early university years, I would say then I was like, oh, I want to grow my glutes. I want to get stronger. But I was very much stuck in this vicious cycle where I would maybe increase the amount of food I was eating and then I'd freak out that I was going to be gaining weight. So I'd pull things back and then I'd think, oh, okay, right, okay, I look really lean now. I'm happy with this. And then I would kind of think, okay, let's try again. And that cycle kept going and going and going. I remember feeling more validated when I was quote unquote skinny. But I also hated it at the same time. I would have people say to me, oh my gosh, you're looking so skinny. And oh, are you okay? And I absolutely hated that. But at the same time, I couldn't get out of that cycle. So I was very much stuck in it. I remember when I started first ever tracking my calories and didn't have much knowledge around it. I remember thinking, right, okay, I'll set my calories to this amount, which was very low looking back. And I just remember getting to the end of the day, getting the peanut butter out of the cupboard, eating it with a spoon, pretty much clearing off a packet of dark chocolate and just thinking, I'm just going to forget about that. I just won't log it. We'll just pretend it never happened. And I think for me, it was, I think I was in a bit of a denial. I don't think I realized I was in that restrictive mindset where I was eating such low calories and I was looking at foods as that's good, that's bad, I can't have that. But then I was almost secret eating to myself and then not admitting that I was doing that. So I know I was absolutely stuck in that cycle of wanting to be the smallest version of myself, but then always wanting to break free and thinking, no, I'm going to go for it now. I'm going to get strong.
Wow, wow, that's so interesting. So then what was the shift then? What really allowed you to then start having that healthier outlook and that, okay, now I'm not going to be in this cycle anymore. What was the shift for you there?
I think that had been going on for quite some time. I want to say maybe 5 years. Yeah, about 5 years. And I just got to the point where I was really tired all of the time. I was quite cold because I would say I was actually underweight at one point. My lifts weren't going up in the gym. I wasn't getting any stronger. I wasn't seeing progress. And I was sick of feeling like when I was going out for friends, I couldn't choose something off the menu that I wanted. I was quite anxious about that. I wouldn't say I've ever had an eating disorder, but I've definitely been anxious around food and social plans. And I would just see all of my friends really enjoying and looking so relaxed. And I'd think, how can they feel that way? Like, why aren't I feeling that way? And I can't remember the exact time because this was maybe about 6 years ago now. But I just remember waking up one day and thinking, this needs to change. And that's when I actually started my journey in becoming a coach as well. So I started looking into qualifications, I started looking into nutrition a lot more, and then, yeah, started pulling myself out of that hole I was in.
Wow. So it was just kind of like it's never an overnight thing, is it? But it's kind of like these
No.
little incremental things of eating the peanut butter, feeling that shame, going to the gym, seeing that this is not right, feeling that this is not right, to the point that it catapults to being like something has to change. Something has
Yeah,
to change. Did you ever
definitely.
have fear? Because this was a big fear of mine that I've only just within the last kind of month or so, like eradicated. It was so funny when I started like my gym journey. I had this huge fear that I was suddenly just gonna be very masculine. Like I would
Mhm.
have like these biceps and like these big legs, and it was gonna really like feel like very manly. And I remember saying to my coach at the time, I remember saying like, "Oh yeah, but if I go and lift in the gym, I'm gonna be like." And she was like, "I've been doing this for 10 years. Look at me." And I was like, "You look
Yeah,
great." And she's like, "Yeah, I'm lifting like 4 times a week. This is what I'm doing. It is not that simple." And I was like,
mhm.
and only now when I go and I'm doing it, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, you can barely tell that much compared to how much I'm doing." But
Yeah.
did you ever have that fear, and do any of your clients still come to you with that fear?
Oh, 100% all of the time. So going back to my uni days, contradictingly, even though I would say it was my guy friends who helped me get into the gym, I remember this one comment I had, and it will always stay with me. I was doing some bicep curls in the mirror, and a guy was working out next to me, and he just looked at me and he said, "You're a girl. Why are you doing bicep curls?" And I just thought I'd never spoken to him in my life. I was like, maybe I'm not supposed to then? Like, is this going to make me look manly? So that was one comment. And then there was another comment I had in my first ever full time job after I graduated. And the kind of women that I worked with, none of them went to the gym, none of them really weightlift. So I remember them saying to me, I was just printing things off in the office. And one of them turned to me and they said, "You know, you go to the gym all the time, you weightlift. Are you not afraid of eventually looking like a man?" And that again really stuck with me. And I just thought, wow, like, surely this is not a thing. This can't happen. Like, I've been influenced by women on Instagram. They don't look like men, they're weightlifting. So I knew that something wasn't quite right with what things were being said to me, but I was also questioning it myself. So I was definitely in that cycle, and I think that is what contributed to me wanting to gain healthy weight, wanting to become strong, but then restricting and thinking, "Oh my gosh, no, I can't eat that," and then being in denial. And then I think when I actually started studying and I started speaking to more people in the fitness industry, that became apparent to me that it is absolutely not going to happen. And I think I remember a lady saying to me before, "Oh, this is something that I've been working on for 20 years. Don't stress yourself out. You're not going to get the muscle you want to build overnight." And I think that really stuck with me because it's so true. I think women think they will start weightlifting and instantly overnight they're just going to wake up and look like Hulk, and they're not going to be able to fit into their clothes anymore. And it just does not happen that way. But we have been conditioned to think that women should look a certain way, women should be slim and toned. They use this word toned a lot. And that has shaped so many of our perceptions. And I think for me, going into the fitness industry and doing my own qualifications, do my own research, walking the walk has helped me come out of that. But I just think with clients who come to me, they are in the position that I was in. They haven't got qualifications. It's not something that we're taught in school. So there's still this cycle of women thinking that is going to turn them into a man when it just does not happen at all. So this is why I then wanted to continue working on my qualifications, become a coach, and help other women feel the way that I feel now.
Mm. Yeah, so true because it's such a toxic narrative, isn't it? And there's so many of these toxic narratives. Like that's just one of them is the kind of
Yeah.
like going to the gym and bulking, it's going to make you into a man. Then there's the skinny kind of narrative and this is what it is to be a woman and this kind of like catwalk model thing. And then
Mm-hmm.
what it is to in order to get that and how much you should eat and what it is to be a woman. And I think that that is like you say, it's this cycle, and I found that on my own journey too. It's not until we kind of go and actively seek it and have our own experience that we're like, oh, well, that's not the same. That's not what I
Yeah.
was told. That's not well, I feel a lot better now, and that's not what was being told to me. And it's only getting bigger, isn't it, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
now social media is escalating and there's all these filters and all these different ways of looking, all these enhancements, and it's just really warping our perception of what it is to be a woman and what it is to
Yeah,
feel like a woman and what is a woman. And that was a big thing on my journey, was like, this whole feminine journey, this exploration of the feminine, because like, what is it to be a woman? And it's
absolutely.
what supports that, and that's what's so beautiful about the work that you're doing, and how you're supporting women in these ways. And I'd love to hear a little bit more on that, in terms of, I love that that inspired you to go into this work, because it's like, I want to share this message. I know what it feels like to have misinformation and to feel that way. How how can I share this with more women? And what are some of their reactions to that? Like, do you have to break through a lot of resistance, because for years they've been thinking and being told a certain way? How is that for you?
So I would definitely say every client is different. And you have to learn a lot more about their background and their mindset before deciding which approach you're going to take with that individual client. A lot of them were maybe in the position that I was in for years. So for about 5 years, I was stuck in that cycle, and it just got to the point where I thought, this is enough. I have to make some change, and I was fed up. And that was the simplest way to put it. I was fed up, and I was really ready to just make moves forward. So I have clients who come in that position, and I know that they're ready. So I know that they're ready for quite a big challenge, and we can literally start from day one and start increasing their calories pretty much within the first 2 weeks of them starting, and get them through those gym doors, and they're fine. Other clients will take a little bit more persuading, but that's completely understandable because, like I said, this is not something that we're taught in school, which still absolutely baffles me. So we do have these warped perceptions. And if someone has come from no fitness background, no one in their family has really had any experience in the fitness industry or even in fitness and health themselves, then of course they're only just starting to think about these things, and they might have seen things on social media over the last few years. I don't know if you can remember, but the hip dip craze, like, where did that come from? And the thigh gap craze. And then they come to me and they're like, yeah, but this is what I want to achieve, but I'm really worried that my thighs are going to touch by the end of it. And it's crazy that how much social media and magazines, because I would read magazines when I was younger. I don't know if you were
Oh,
the
yes.
same. Yeah, magazines have shaped these women's perception, and I do definitely have to break through those barriers. I know that they're coming to me because clients will come to the coach that they feel they connect with and resonate with the most. So I know that I can help them, but I just have to learn where they're currently at. And do they firstly need to get confident with just going to the gym? Do they need tips around their nutrition more so? And then we can build on the foundations as we're going along. But there is no one size fits all at all. And definitely people take persuading.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you just even said that about the thigh gap thing, because I was literally in the shower the other day and I was like, oh my God, like my thighs are getting bigger. And like, for
Yeah.
me, it's just so new. And it's like, oh my God, like, and I instantly remember somebody saying to me when I was younger, like, oh yeah, like she's so fat, like that her thighs are like would hit together. And then so instantly in me that got triggered, and I was like, oh my God, this means I'm fat because my thigh. And I was like, whoa, you just like literally had to stop myself in that thought. This was like two
Yeah.
days ago. And I was like, this is fascinating. This is fascinating that this is so woven into our psyche, in our subconscious, that just that one little moment brought up so much emotion, so much fear in my system.
Hmm.
And to be able to catch that, whereas for a lot of people, and for me, previous to my kind of healing journey, I wouldn't have been able to catch that thought. And that would have just spiraled.
Absolutely. And there's a root cause to everything as well. So, with you saying that you thought that in the shower and then they brought back all of these emotions, that's going to have come from a root cause somewhere. And until we get to the point where we're working on our mindset and we're working on these thoughts, we're never going to get to the bottom of why is that a bad thing though? What is the issue about that? And it's funny that you say that because one of my clients actually messaged me yesterday saying, I know I wanted to start this journey to become stronger and gain healthy weight, but my thighs are touching and I'm not sure I like that. I've had a thigh gap for as long as I can remember. And I just turned around to her and I said, what is so bad about your thighs getting a little bit bigger, a little bit more muscular, stronger? What is so bad about them touching? And it's purely because of everything that we've seen in the media for such a long time, thigh gap. And then for such a long time, it was being the smallest version of yourself, seeing these models in magazines who were on like crazy cucumber and tomato diets. And then out of nowhere, we saw Kim Kardashian come about with this huge BBL. And all of a sudden, people were like, oh no, oh my God, yeah, looking thicker is better. I want to gain weight now. So it's crazy to see how everything that we see from social media, from journalists, completely shapes our perception.
Mm, absolutely. I can resonate so deeply. I'm getting goosebumps. It's like I was speaking with my trainer the other day and she was kind of like, "Oh, how are you after like, it's been like 7 or 8 months of doing the journey." And I was like, "Yeah, like I'm feeling like so much stronger in the gym, like the way that I feel, like when I'm in the gym, like I feel great." And she was like, "Oh, amazing. I'd love to see your progress pictures," because she gets us to take photos like kind of weekly shoot. And she said from
Yeah.
the beginning, like if you don't do it, then you're not going to see the progress you'll make and all these types of things. So I did it at the beginning. And then when I came to the UK, I just started to feel a lot more insecure again. And I don't know if it's been back in like the subconscious surroundings of where I grew up. And I was like, it's
Yeah.
just too much for me right now to be taking photos of myself in that way. And because I'm here and it's colder, I'm like dressing up more. So I'm not in my bikini as much as I was when I was in
Mm-hmm.
Bali and these types of things. And it didn't really kind of click with me until she said that. And she was like, "Can you show me your progress photos? I'd love to see it and celebrate with you." And I was like, "Oh, I've not been taking them." And she was like, "Oh, can I ask why?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." And then when she said that, I was like, "Oh, wow. Like, why have I not been taking them?" And I
Yeah.
realized like, oh, I've been like covering myself up. I've been feeling more insecure again. And it's this like body dysmorphia that's at this level now where it's like, okay, like I feel so good in my body. I know that this is healthy. I know that this is strong. I know that this is what I'm asking for. But when I look out, it's still very difficult for me because my perception of what is beautiful and of what is me and what is acceptable as a woman is still so challenging. And I don't, in my lens, marry up to that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that is something that is still something that I'm definitely challenged with. And I wonder, like, in terms of we talked a little bit about mindset and how to overcome that. As a coach, how do you support people through those moments where it's like, oh yeah, like this is so woven into my psyche that like how do I actually pull away from that? Is it looking at the bigger picture of the goals? Is it kind of going more scientific, or again, is it case to case basis?
I would say it's a little bit of remembering their why they started their journey, a little bit about their overall health, because majority of time you'll see people start their journey because of aesthetic purposes, which is fine. If you want to change something about your body in a healthy way, that's absolutely fine. But that shouldn't be the sole focus of why you've started your journey. There should be a bigger reason. And if there's not a bigger reason, and you're not thinking about your future self, and you're not thinking about your health in future, you're going to quit at some point. There's no doubt about it, because our body isn't going to change overnight. And there's going to be days where you wake up and you don't want to show up for yourself. So if you quit in those moments and you haven't got a bigger reason as to why you'd like to go forward in your journey, you're not going to continue on. So I try and go around the bigger picture, absolutely, of overall health. That is the main reason that we should all be weightlifting or strength training a couple of times a week at least, moving our body and eating goodness as well. So I do try and remind clients about that. Um, in terms of moving away from, I suppose, being stuck in a cycle of wanting to remain the smallest version of themselves and wanting to gain strength, a lot of clients get to the point where a few weeks down the line, I've let them settle into their routine. We've built up habits very gradually. And then they'll actually turn to me and they'll be like, okay, I'm feeling confident enough to move to the next step now. And I think that's because from the get go, I start to educate them around certain things. So, like you were saying there, you kind of turned your head away from taking progress photos because you just didn't want to face up to it. I have a lot of clients who maybe to begin with don't want to step on the scale because in their head they're tied to a certain number. But I kind of break that down and I say to them, what number on the scale is going to make you happy, and why is that number going to make you happy? Because that is just something on the floor that you're standing on. It does not define your worth. It does not define what you do in life. It does not define your achievement. It does not define your shape or how healthy you are. So why are you so tied to a number, and emotionally attached to that? And I think just educating clients around the fact that our scale weight fluctuates for so many reasons. If you want to gain strength, which I think everyone should work on gaining some strength in their life, especially as we get older, you're likely going to see that scale go up because as we build muscle, we might gain scale weight. And that's not a bad thing. So I think educating from the get go really helps. And yeah, I would say because clients come to me to start their journey, they're already in the mindset of wanting to get to where they want to be. They just need that support and they need that accountability. And then probably seeing my posts on social media as we're going along, that helps and resonates with a lot of people as well. And I often get clients actually messaging me saying, "Oh, you post tonight. I really needed to see that. Thank you." So yeah, I try and keep that up for everyone as well.
I love that because it's this thing, isn't it? I think we've been conditioned to feel shame around our bodies. Like, shame is
Mhm.
the thing. So it's like when you can actually be celebrated for your health and celebrated for making these positive steps towards your health, you get such a reward by just somebody saying, like, good job, like, well done, this is incredible, I'm proud of you. It's like so, so important to have that support. So like what you're
Yeah,
providing for people is that permission to not feel the shame anymore. And I
yeah.
think that what you talked about there in terms of scales as well, that has been something that's really played into my life because through my eating disorder, I was very like regimented with the scale. Like it was like my best friend
Mhm.
slash worst enemy, you know, because I had to kind of see where I was at and where I was tracking. And then through my healing journey, I really came away from the scales. I knew that it was kind of like drinking alcohol for an alcoholic, you know, because it would just kind of keep me in that place. But when I started working with a nutritionist, she said to me, like, I need to know your weight. I need to
Yeah.
know, like, because we need to know what's happening internally
Mhm.
for your body. So I remember I started going on the scales again and I was seeing these numbers. And like you say, at first, like, it's kind of like, oh, like that number seems huge. Like, that seems a big number. And I noticed that I started to kind of get fixated again on it. And even though I was like really wanting this healing journey, it was very challenging to overcome this number. And it's so
Yeah.
interesting that you say this because it's like, yeah, what number are you happy at? What number is your number? Because even at the number I was at, I was cold, I was sad, I was in pain all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want to be this number, but what number do I want to be? And it wasn't until I came back to the UK, I actually had like a healing ceremony for myself with with the scales. And I was like, look, you don't have to define me, you don't have to own me, you're just a number, and that is all you are. And I think it was a really big step in my journey because now I can see a scale and not be afraid of it and have that fear because it had so much ownership over me. This
Mhm.
thing, this like, oh, this is going to determine, like you say, my worth, what it is to be a woman, my validation. And I realized like, oh, it's okay. Like it's okay. And I don't need to go on it every day and I don't need to be scared of it because it's just a number. And that was
That's
huge.
amazing.
That was huge.
Yeah, that's amazing because it takes some people a long, long time, some people their whole life to get to the point where they realize, oh, why was I so worried about that? And what I say a lot of the time to clients is if they're worrying about it or if they're worrying about slightly going over their calories that they've been assigned, are you going to get to 80 years old and look back and think, oh God, I remember that day when I was 28 and I went over my calories and then I weighed a little bit more? Who is going to care? You're not going to care. You're going to look back and you're going to want to have known that you've made memories in life. You did what you could to look after your health, physical and mental. And that is the bigger picture that we need to be looking at. I don't know if you remember maybe when we were a little bit younger, it was, oh, it must have been 15 years ago, maybe even more than that. There were these interviews that were going around, and I remember Victoria Beckham, especially on one. Do you remember the person who was interviewing her said, "Oh, we've heard a rumor that you've gained weight," and they literally had a scale in the studio that she was being interviewed in, and they just said, "So we're just gonna, can we ask you to stand on the scale?" And can you even imagine what that these kind of things have done to women over the years? And it was never a man. They would have never asked a man that in an interview. How much do you weigh? It was always the women.
Mhm.
And this is why we have been told that we should look a certain way, weigh certain things. And yeah, I think that's unfortunately where all of this has come from.
That, wow, I don't remember that. Like, but that is
Yeah,
like, did she get on the scales? Did
I'm
she do
pretty
it?
sure she did. It surfaced again on social media pretty recently.
It's
Yeah.
especially back then, like the tabloids were so toxic, right? Like they were just so, I mean, even now, but then because you didn't have social media, you didn't have to be able to give your version of the story. And
Yeah.
like now you're seeing all of these celebrities bringing out their own documentaries and stuff, like the Beckhams have one, right? And you get to see
Hmm.
their life a little bit more. But back then it was like whatever is in the newspaper and or whatever is in the magazines. And you mentioned this earlier yourself, and this was something I used to read a lot when I was younger. And on the front page, they would circle
The
like
weight.
the weight, or like
Yeah.
if a woman was in a bikini on her honeymoon or something, they would circle like her love
Like
handles,
cellulite or
cellulite, and I'd
yeah.
be like terrified because I was like, oh my
Hmm.
God, like look at the shame and like
Yeah.
look at how much toxicity is being projected towards this woman because she she has love handles. It's like, and what
Uh-huh.
even is that? It's like, oh,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
so crazy. And I think what you say in terms of like the bigger picture and seeing yourself as like 80 years old, I think that was something that was really interesting for me actually because my partner said to me, I remember him saying like, where do you see yourself at like 60 or 70 or 80?
Hmm.
And I was like,
You don't think
I
about
don't
it, right?
know. Yeah, I was like, I don't know. And he was like, because when I'm 60, I'm gonna be like in my ultimate health. I'm gonna have a ripped body. I'm gonna have like mobility. And he was like, I'm gonna be the
Yeah.
healthiest version of myself. I'm gonna be that guy at the gym that everyone's like, he's 60. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
I, I can't even see myself living to that age. And I was like, and I think it was because genuinely, like I wasn't going to live to that age if I was carrying on doing what I was doing to my body. And I was like, no, I want to create that image for myself. I want to see myself at 70. I want to see myself at 80. I want to be smiley and happy and healthy. And then, like you say, that actual picture helps in those moments where, yeah, you've gone over your calories, you've eaten a bit more, you've not worked out today, you've not done these things. And it's like, well, actually, that's not gonna matter when I'm 80. It's not gonna matter. And actually, by taking these steps now and by having this healthier approach now, this healthier mindset towards myself, and by rewiring that now, is setting me up for the future. But I think we live in an instant age, don't we? We live in the now. But this is
Hmm.
this is not forever. And like we need to be able to make decisions that set ourselves up for our future. And I love that you touched
Absolutely.
upon that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's so important, especially for women as we do get older, we go through menopause, our hormones change, and that can contribute to certain conditions. And if we haven't been looking after our body, we haven't been focusing on our strength, then later in life, that might actually end up at a detriment to our health. So that's definitely why I like pushing okay, great. If you want to look a certain way, that's fine. We can work towards that. But actually, let's make sure that you're educated on this as well so that you know that you need to be focusing on your overall health, not just the way you look.
Oh, that's so important because, like you said, that we're just not taught this stuff. And like you
Yeah.
just touched upon there, like menopause. How much do we know about menopause? How much is
Mhm.
this talked about? Like, how much do we are we educated in terms of this is the best way to support ourselves? Even our cycle, our period, right? Like, I
Yeah.
had to learn what the contraceptive pill was doing to my body in order for me to take the steps to come off it because I had no
Uh,
idea. And it
yeah.
was like, why are we not given this education? And I'd love to hear from you in terms of this as well, in terms of maybe some of the science or some of the background in terms of why do we need to build strength first of all for
Yeah.
like our health as we age, and how can that help us later down the line?
Yeah, of course. So, firstly, just going back to you saying how much do we know about this? I don't know if you remember sex education or anything like that in school. Yeah, do you remember? I don't know if you had this, but I'm sure we had one class on periods. and the boys got sent out.
Yeah.
So it was literally just a class for the good. Like, that is mind-boggling now, looking back at that. And I think there was maybe 2 sex ed days. You put a condom on a banana, and that was
Banana, yeah.
it. That is literally the only thing they spoke about. I'd never heard of the word menopause until I probably finished secondary school, or towards the end of secondary school, when my mother brought it up.
Mm.
So yeah, it's not even mentioned in school, and it's something that people definitely need to be educated on. So with the science around strength building, weightlifting, when women hit around the age 30, our muscle mass can drop by 3% a year. It doesn't sound like a lot, but 30 is very young. So if you add up that over the years, that is going to equate to quite a lot of muscle mass loss. So we want to make sure we're doing what we can to keep on top of our strength and keep our muscles strong and keep our muscle mass as high as it can be. When we then hit menopause, estrogen, that drops, the hormone drops, meaning that we can be more susceptible to conditions like osteoporosis. Have you heard of that?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so it can cause brittle bones, and if we have falls, we can very easily break our bones then. But weightlifting and looking after our strength can actually not only strengthen our bones, but it can improve our bone density. It can help our joints. It can help with everyday activities. I don't know about you, but I don't want to keep going back to the car for 7 trips after a food shop. I want to be able to carry all of my shopping in one trip. I can't be bothered for that. So it can help with everyday tasks as well. And it can also help with our mood. We forget that looking after our physical health is also looking after our mental health. And I think that is missed off quite a lot. They go hand in hand. And by looking after our health, looking after our strength, we are going to improve our mood. We're going to improve our cognitive function. And that is also going to help with our overall life too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's something I've really felt actually by going to the gym. Like I always feel way better. Like I always feel,
Yeah,
and I just, it's like the endorphin rush. But
it's
this was a
empowering.
question that somebody asked me actually, that asked me to ask you. Because and while we're talking about mood, I think it's a good time to segue into it. She's been away from the gym for quite a while, and she doesn't have the best relationship with exercise. Like she knows she should do it, and she's like, I know I should do it, and I know that I sometimes feel better for it. So she's basically just signed up to go to the gym again, and she's starting very kind of like slowly. She's like kind of easing her way back in, and she said she went to the gym for the first time the other day, and she's like walking on the treadmill, and she's like, yeah, like I'm feeling pretty good, and she's got it on like an uphill incline. She's taking it steady. She's doing few stretches, but she said afterwards she felt really sad, and she felt in like not a good mood, and she was like, I'm really confused because I've always felt and thought that exercise, like you feel so much better after, your mood enhances. Like, basically, why am I not feeling good after this? And she was like, is it because she was like, I don't look out at people and I don't particularly think it's anything, like I'm not comparing myself. It's not really that. There's just something inside of me that I'm not actually feeling good after I've exercised. And I know I'm not pushing myself to the extreme. Um, what is that? Have you ever come across that, or any of your clients ever felt that? Yeah, would love to hear your perspective on that.
So I remember one client, I never let her forget it. She had PT sessions with me. So before I became an online coach, I was a PT on the gym floor. And when she started with me, her first ever session, she said, I'm never going to like exercise. And I said, you will. She said, no, I can promise you I will not. I'll tolerate it whilst I'm having my PT sessions with you, but I'm never going to like it. I just know that I need to do this for my health. And I just looked at her and I smiled. I said, okay. 2 weeks later, 2 weeks, that's all it took. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I think I just enjoyed that session. So, what I think usually happens when someone isn't really enjoying their workouts is, one, are you focusing on the things that you enjoy? A lot of the time people aren't, but that's because of lack of experience finding out what they do enjoy. So if she hasn't had a gym program to follow before, where she is going to be consistently progressing with her strength or with her lifts and having that sense of accomplishment, she's probably not going to get to the point where she does have that enjoyment. So I would definitely say you need experience with a few different things. You need to trial out different things at the gym. If she does feel confident to do so, I recommend starting in a quiet area. So on a treadmill to start with is perfect. That's absolutely amazing that she's got herself into the gym and she's doing that for herself. I always recommend getting on the treadmill to just have a look at your surroundings, have a look at where the machines are, get yourself nice and calm and get yourself in the mindset of, right, I'm here for me. Look at everyone else. They're not looking at me. No one else is bothered. Get yourself off the treadmill. If she says she has a stretching area, she said she went to a stretching area, didn't she? Yeah, she could maybe get a couple of dumbbells and start with some exercises in that area. I would then venture off to some machines. So I would build it in very gradually for my own clients. And as they build up experience with different exercises and different workouts pop together for their own specific goals, that's usually when they will turn around and say, okay, you were right. Yeah, I do enjoy exercise now, but it just takes a little bit of time to get there. And sometimes you don't even know that it's down to your lack of experience with certain equipment in the gym and certain exercises, certain methods of exercise, because we know there's so many different types of exercise out there, and there's so many different exercises you can pop together in one session as well. So I think it's just about having experience and finding out what works for you. But incredible that she's managed to get herself through the gym, because so many people do fear that.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot in here that I wanted to touch on actually, and this is so interesting because you mentioned like the kind of lack of experience on not having a plan, and that's something that I really felt until I actually had a workout program and like somebody
Yeah,
like guiding me through it. I was like, now I enjoy it. But like if you just go into the gym and you just look at the machines and you have no idea where to start,
it's
it's
daunting.
it's so daunting and so overwhelming. And it's not a fun experience because everyone
Mhm.
around you knows what they're doing and they're in their zone, and you're like kind of like a deer in headlights, like, oh my God, what am I doing? And it's quite yeah, it's quite an overwhelming experience. So if you don't have a plan and you don't have that support, and then you don't have any way to track your results, it becomes pointless. It becomes absolutely
100%.
pointless.
It absolutely does feel pointless when you're doing it in that sense. Going in with a plan is it will change your life because walking into the gym not having a clue what you need to be doing, you're going to be looking around frantically trying to figure out what's free, what's available. Oh, that's free, I'll just hop on that. But you have no idea what it's going to be doing for you. You have no idea on how to progressively overload on that equipment or what it's going to do for you. If you do, going in with a plan is absolutely key. I completely agree with that. And I know clients who have come to me and they've been really anxious to go through these gym doors, but then they've had a program to follow. They've messaged me after saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of myself. I got that done. Going in with a plan really helped." And that is such a nice thing to hear as a coach as well. So I like you said, going in with a plan is huge. I definitely think gym anxiety can be a real thing, but someone said to me before, which has always stuck to me, it was a little bit harsh, and that's probably why it stuck with me, was when I was going through my days of feeling anxious. And after I'd left uni, I was, no longer really in touch with my gym friends because we'd all gone our separate ways. It was my time to fly and find my own way. Going into a new gym for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, right, how am I going to do this? I think I spent about 5 minutes in the toilets just hyping myself up, like literally in the cubicle as well. Like I wouldn't even go out to the changing rooms where the other women were. I was just hyping myself up, sitting in the toilet, like, right, come on, I can do this. And I think someone said to me when I got into it a few weeks later, it's not all about you. No one's looking at you in the gym. As harsh as it sounds, they don't care about you. They're caring about their own journey and what they're there to do. And that really stuck with me. And literally the next day, I just walked straight in. I was like, she was so right. No one's looking at me. No one cares. And it's so much easier said than done when you are in that mindset. But you just have to remember that unless you get yourself through the gym doors and you start gradually, no matter how long it takes, you are not going to get to where you want to be. And would you really want to go through life being held back by other people, or false perceptions of other people? Because no one's actually looking at you, it's just your false perceptions.
That is so true. And oh my God, did I do that? Like when I started the gym journey, I was like, my God, like I'm literally doing like 2 kg, like, and I'm like, oh my God, like everyone's going to be looking at me. This is so embarrassing. I'm doing such a low weight. Sometimes I just have to use the bar and not put anything on
Uh-huh.
it. Sometimes it was just body weight. And I remember being like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing that everyone's looking at me. And then I remember just being like, but I'm not looking at anyone else. Like I'm literally not
Exactly.
looking at anyone else. And I'm like so focused on my own journey and my own thing. So I was like, let me just experiment. So like I did like one time I went into the gym and I was like looking around and I was like, okay, that guy's doing that, that woman's doing that, he's doing that, she's doing that.
Uh-huh.
They don't have time to look at me. Why would they even care? Like, why would they care?
Exactly.
And then it was like I looked at somebody that picked up a weight and I'm like, I'm not like looking at the weight being like, what are they lifting there? Are they lifting some? And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, this is
Hmm.
so true. It's like we just think the world revolves around us, and it really doesn't.
100%. And it's so easy to compare your day one to someone else's day 100. And that is never going to go down well because you're looking at someone else and thinking, oh my gosh, why aren't I lifting that? But you're forgetting that they started where you're starting. And you have
Mhm.
to remember that. And most of the time, people in a gym will be so helpful. And I'm not sure about you now, but you probably, same as me, look at other women in the weight section. If you ever do look at them and you think, wow, go on. Like that is incredible. It's so nice to see another woman there. And that is the only reason why I would ever look at anyone else in the gym.
That is so true. I literally went over to a woman the other day and I just said, like, wow, like
Uh-huh.
you are incredible. Because I was like just in awe of what she was doing. And I was like, this is, and there's no jealousy, there's no bitterness, there's no, oh, how it's literally just love. It's like, wow, you are incredible. Like you go, girl. And it's so funny that you talk about this comparison because this is like a really interesting story to share. But when I started my gym journey, I really I used to go with my partner and he's been going to the gym what since he was 14, 13 or something,
Yeah,
like big like gym
so
nut.
young.
Yeah, like just always just knowing how to go to the gym and use the machines and all these things. And we used to work out in a more of like a without the machines gym. I can't even think of what it's called, like a calisthenics gym. And
Okay, yeah.
he used to like do like the sled pulls and stuff, and he used to do the pull-ups and he used to do like the rings and the hoops and all these things. And I genuinely, I used to sit there and I'd be like, why can't I do that? And I'd be so angry that I couldn't lift how he lifted. And then
Hmm.
we start he because when I started my gym journey, he actually worked with me on it, which was so helpful. Like having somebody that knows the machines that would speak to me and like look at my form and all these things. And he would just do it like tandem. So like I'd jump in and he'd jump in. And obviously like we'd do something like leg extensions. And I'd be on like, I don't know, like 15, 20. And then he'd just put it like right to the bottom of the thing and start to do it. And I would get so pissed off because I'd be like, how can you do that? And he was like, what? And he was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, how can you do that? And I can't. And he was like, Molly, first of all, I'm a man and I've been doing this for the last X amount of years. And
Yeah.
look at my thighs. Do you like look at my thighs? I like look at my abs. And I'm like, oh yeah, I don't want that. But it was so weird that I was like, why can't I do what you're doing? Why can't I lift what you're lifting? And it was so bizarre to compare myself to my boyfriend.
Yeah, I've definitely been there. And to be honest with you, even in the last couple of years, I've had to check in with myself during the session because I might have had a really poor sleep. I might have had to drop my weights down in the gym because I'm not feeling too strong that day. And I'm just getting annoyed at myself, like, oh, what am I doing? But we have to remember that as a woman, we do have our cycle. We are going to have fluctuating hormones. And we're human at the end of the day. We're not going to have a perfect day every single day of the year. I say this to my clients all the time. There's 52 weeks in a year. There is no way that every single one of those weeks are going to feel perfect, whatever that means. There's going to be weeks where we don't hit what we want to hit. There's going to be weeks where we can't tick off all of our non negotiables. But for me, the most important thing is to see people showing up for themselves as often as they can. One day that might be literally getting out of bed and having a shower and keeping yourself hydrated throughout the day. Another day that is going to be going out for a walk, getting your session ticked off, eating lots of nutritious food. There's so many different ways to show up for yourself. And I think as long as you're doing that as consistently as possible and you're staying in your own lane, blocking out what anyone else is doing and just focusing on your own path, you will get to where you want to get to.
And I think this is so interesting that you talk about this in terms of the cycle as well, because we live in a patriarchal society. So we live on, we can do the same things every day, but
Hmm.
we can't do
Hmm.
it. And it wasn't until I started learning about my cycle that I actually was able to give myself the grace that, oh,
Yeah,
like just because I could do this yesterday doesn't mean that I can do this today. And on
yeah,
the first day of my bleed, like I shouldn't really be lifting. I shouldn't really like if I want to hibernate and stay in bed, like honor that, not like, oh, well, why could I do this 2 weeks ago? And
yeah.
how much of that do you share with your clients and how educated are they in that? Because for me, that again, that was an area, my cycle was a whole new adventure.
Yeah, so I definitely think it's being talked about more these days, but we still don't know enough about our own bodies because, again, it's not something we're educated about. When clients, so every single week, I should start with that, clients have a one-to-one check-in with me. So they submit a series of data and they fill out a form. In that form, go through how are they feeling physically, how are they feeling mentally. And another question is, where are you in your menstrual cycle? And the reason I ask that is because if they're messaging me and they're getting frustrated with the fact that they're not feeling too strong in the gym, or they're feeling really tired, or they may be craving a little bit more, or one of my other clients, maybe she suffers with insomnia and that has a knock on effect to the rest of the week, or scale weight, even. There's so many things that we don't know about that I find really helpful that I can educate them, my clients. So when we are due on and our hormones are fluctuating, we can show a kilogram, 2 kilograms higher on the scale. And even that in itself allows me to go back to clients and say, relax, it's literally down to hormones. Again, this is why I get you to submit your weight so that we can learn about these fluctuations. And this is why I ask these questions so I can actually let you know. So I do think it's very important to be intuitive with where you are in your cycle. I would say that it affects women very differently. So for me, 1 month I can be absolutely fine. I won't even know really, and I can continue at the gym as normal. This month I was really tired, so that meant that I maybe needed an extra rest day, or I could still go to the gym, but I just miss out a couple of exercises, or I drop down the weights. Some clients who maybe suffer with endometriosis, they do really struggle for a whole week of a month, and they will maybe need some more adapting than the average woman. So it's about knowing, I suppose, where you are in your cycle, how it affects you as an individual, and whether you do have any underlying conditions. And then I would base my decisions on their program and whether they'd need any changing and adapting around that.
Mm. Yeah, so important. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, it's been huge for my journey, and I'm the same. Like some months it's like, like it's like the full week and I'm out, and then other times it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I forgot that I was even on this week, and it's like
Uh-huh.
so interesting. But even just knowing that inside yourself and being like, yep, okay, this is just gonna be one of those weeks, or it's like, I actually feel okay, like I can still move, and
Mhm.
honoring that in the
You've got to
cycle.
listen to your body for sure. I have seen a lot of posts recently that are telling women to do strength training 1 week of the month, yoga another 1 week of the month. I think if you do have underlying conditions and you genuinely do struggle for a couple of weeks, then absolutely fine. But you don't need to change absolutely everything if you don't. Like, our bodies are absolutely incredible. We're very strong. We have worked through so much for so many centuries whilst having a cycle. I think it's just about learning your own body and what you are capable of around your cycle. And like you say, just accepting that some months are going to feel harder than the others.
Mm, absolutely. And I think while we're kind of on this theme in terms of like understanding ourselves and our bodies, I think we have to kind of go into the nutrition and touch on kind of
Yeah,
what you teach, what you've learned, what you've discovered in terms of nutrition and what you share with your clients, because this is such a big one. It's so huge. I think like this can even
yeah.
be bigger than like the gym journey itself is the nutrition and what to eat and what not to eat and how to track and all of those things. So I'd love to hear yeah, how you navigate that yourself and with your clients.
So much. Where to even start? I think going back again, there's been I suppose there's a perception of good and bad food and what's healthy for you and what's not healthy and what's going to make us gain weight in a really unhealthy way. And that has created a lot of fear around certain food groups. Have you experienced that yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
a lot of people experience it. So I think for me, first and foremost, like educate clients around the fact that they can fit what they want into their day. However, we do have to focus on whole foods and nutritiously dense foods as well. So, for example, have you heard of the if it fits in my macros, I can have it?
Yes, I have.
Yes. So, just for any listeners, if it fits in my macros, I can have it pretty much means if you are assigned calories, you can eat whatever you want as long as it fits within your calories. I personally do not agree with this because that means that we're just going to look at calories and food as a number and just pretty much nothing, no nutrition. But there is so much more to food than that. Like food is our fuel. A car can't run off no petrol. We can't run off no fuel. And whilst, yes, okay, to a certain extent, if you are staying within your calories and you're eating pizza and chocolate every single day, yes, you might maintain where you're at, or you might build muscle or drop fat, whatever it is that your goals are. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be great for your long term health. There's nothing wrong with pizza and there's nothing wrong with chocolate, but you need to be focusing on actually getting whole foods in, your vitamins, your minerals, because these are the things that are actually going to help you long term. They're going to help with your cognitive function, they're going to help with your moods. Our gut is our second brain. So if we're feeding ourselves foods with no nutrients in every single day, like how do you think you're going to feel? You're going to feel really low on energy waking up. You're going to feel quite lethargic throughout your day. You're not going to feel very motivated. So I like to say, eat the rainbow, get your fruit in, get your veggies in. And if you want some chocolate, just learn how to incorporate that into your day. So yeah, it's about, I suppose, educating on a wider basis, going into why it's important to focus on the foods that you are intaking, but also understanding you can still eat that. That's not a problem. But let me just show you how you can fit that into your day or how we can fit a takeaway into your week while still focusing on ensuring that you're getting plenty of goodness in as well.
I love that. I love that approach because so often you hear of the different diets, right? And I've, oh my God, vegetarian, vegan, carnivore,
Yeah.
keto, low FODMAP, everything, because I basically just destroyed my gut microbiome. So I really had to kind of shift my whole relationship with food. I really had to understand the science behind the food. And then
Mm-hmm.
and then it's become, and especially when I was living in Bali, I really noticed this. It becomes like a food religion. It becomes like
Yeah.
it becomes very dogmatic. And I even saw that in the fitness industry. It's like, oh, well, I'm a vegan bodybuilder, or I'm a keto bodybuilder, or I'm a
Mm-hmm.
carnivore bodybuilder. And it's all these different things. And it's like, well, which one is right? So, from what I'm hearing, then, do you kind of meet your client where they're at in terms of what they're already eating and then educate them around what they're already eating rather than enforce a particular diet or way of eating?
So I definitely do not agree with any kind of fad diets or quick fixes, even things like Slimming World where they label foods with sins, and
Oh,
don't agree with any of that at all. What I tend to do is when a client joins, I will ask them to go through with me what they do tend to eat or what they do eat for their first few days, just so I can have an overview of their food diary. And then I might just say, right, okay, this is great, but we probably need a little bit more of this to make sure that you're getting all of your vitamins, all of your minerals. It's going to help with your energy. It's going to help with your progress. It's going to help with your strength, your muscle recovery. So I go through all of that, and then I might educate them around, okay, but why have you got barely any carbs in there? And they might come back and they might say, oh, I just thought carbs were bad. So I would need to see someone's diary to actually say to them, this is maybe what we should bring in and what we should maybe lay off until, you know, until we're at a point where you understand that you can fit it into your diary, but that's not just what your diary is consisting of.
mhm. And how important is nutrition paired with exercise and strength training?
Really important. They go hand in hand. If you haven't got one, you're not going to be able to get to where you want to, and you're not going to be working on your overall health long term.
Mm.
You're not going to have the muscle recovery, you're not going to have the progressions in the gym. So yeah, and then of course, if you're eating really well and you're eating lots of nutritiously dense foods, that's amazing. But if you're not working on your strength building or your weightlifting, you're not going to build that strength either.
And I think you feel it yourself, right? I know from my own journey, I know we've talked about this before, but I was lifting in the gym and I just got to a point where I was plateauing and I was kind of feeling really like kind of tired and I was like, I don't feel like I can go up in the weights. And then I just increased my protein a little bit. And then all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden I had this energy and I was like, oh, I'm like putting the weights up and I'm like, oh, it was just that intuitive feeling that actually I wasn't kind of getting enough. But it's
Yeah.
interesting when you start the journey because like you say, not only does your intake increase, but also the amount of the different things that you're eating also shifts as well, depending on do I need more fats, do I need more this, and you probably don't even think of it like that. It's just like, oh, now I'm craving avocado this week. And again, that ties
Yeah.
into the cycle, right? Because it's like, oh, sometimes your body needs more fat in order for you to be able to have a cycle that week.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a perception around every macronutrient. For example, carbs, they're bad for you. They make you gain weight. Fat, that makes you fat. You can't have any of that. But we need carbohydrates for our day-to-day energy. We need fat for our hormones and our cycle and our cognitive function. We need protein, like you said, for muscle recovery to feel satiated day to day. And we're not educated on food sources and the I suppose the quality of food sources. We're just seeing food as numbers and calories. That's what a lot of people I think see it as, good and bad and calories.
Yeah, so black and white. It's so like
Mm-hmm.
input versus output, right? And I remember when I was going through my vegan stage, and I always say I was a very bad vegan. Like I didn't have any of like the protein, I didn't have the pulses, I didn't have the beans, I didn't have all the things that a more of a tuned in vegan would have. So I was basically just eating packaged food all the time. And it was like like you said, the actual nutritional benefit that I was receiving was like zero to none because it was
Yeah.
all chemically produced and it was like yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no wonder like I destroyed my microbiome and I felt the way I felt and my hair went brittle, my fingernails went brittle, I had no energy, I was constantly cold. And it's like you say, these sources of actually those whole foods. And it's so funny now because when I lift in the gym, it's like I can see the chicken breast on my, I'm like, oh, there it's going there, it's like as I'm lifting it's like my mouth's watering, I'm like I need like I like it's almost like I can taste the food that I need, or it's like, oh, I'm really
Yeah.
craving bacon today. Like I just did a leg workout and it's like I can see it in my muscles and it's like a really
Mm-hmm.
funny image.
And you've probably found, right, that since you have started your fitness journey, your appetite has also grown.
Massively, massively,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think it's that permission to be okay with that. And just to know that actually, because what I used to do was I'd exercise and just either eat the same or eat less, and then that I'd like reward myself for that because it's like, oh yeah, I've done more than I've intook today. And I think even that is a huge thing, like portion size. Like, how
Yeah.
do we even know how to portion things? How do we even
Mm-hmm.
know what we're putting in our bodies if we're not measuring and if we're not tracking? And like we just have no idea. And again, for me personally, that's been a big hurdle on my journey because I used to track everything. So then I went
Yeah.
to tracking nothing, and then now I have
Mm-hmm.
like a guideline. And it's
Yeah.
something that I'm definitely welcoming in moving forward as I progress on my fitness journey. But yeah, if we have no idea, if we just go around doing this and, like you say, eating the peanut butter in secret, it's like it's still going into your body, you know?
Yeah,
Or
absolutely. And I think has been this perception as well around tracking calories, or there's been certain things that people have seen where that has allowed them to conclude that tracking your calories is obsessive and it's really negative. But if you don't know how to do it properly, yes, it can be. But the reason why I tend to track calories with my clients is so that I can educate them around food. Because until they track their calories, and you were probably the same, you probably didn't realize that you were eating near to no protein and you weren't maybe getting enough fiber in, or you weren't getting the vitamins and minerals that you needed. So it really helps clients understand the quality of food that they're eating. I'm not saying that people should track forever, that I don't think that you should, and I'm definitely working on intuitive eating with clients who have now been with me long term, and they have got to the point where they have learned so much about their body, they've learned so much about nutrition that they can now go towards intuitive eating. But I think it's really important if you want to become educated around food to just at least learn a little bit more in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it changes your whole outlook on it too, right? Because I
Mm.
remember my trainer asked me to submit my calories for the week because she was like, I just kind of want to see like where you're at. And I was like, "Oh, I don't track them." And she was like, yeah, but just do it for a couple of days. Let me know. I'd love to have a guideline. And I was like, oh, okay. Work through all this fear, all this resistance, was like, oh my God. And I think it was the week before my cycle, and I was just eating like loads. Like for me, it just felt like I was eating loads, and I put it
Yeah,
all in, and I sent her the breakdown of it all, and then
you're
I put in
undereating.
brackets, yeah, and I put in brackets like, I it's the week before my cycle, like I've eaten a lot more than I normally would. I'm probably about 300 or 400 under this usually. And she came back to me, she was like, you're way under. And I was like,
Mhm.
what? I was like, I eat like two very big meals a day for me. I have snacks like that feel very big. I've eaten
Yeah,
loads this week. And I think for me as well, it's also reprogramming um the thing of being womanly and like, oh, not filling your plate, or not, like what is a decent plate size for a woman, and not eating too much. Like no way would I have ever gone for seconds, like no way. And
yeah.
even now, if I'm still hungry, I say it out loud just so that I can catch myself, but I'll say like I'm still hungry, because I
Mhm.
feel the shame for still feeling hungry. And thankfully I've got a very supportive partner, and he'd say, well, just get some more then. And I'm like, oh yeah, like it's that simple. But
Yeah,
inside of me, it's like, oh, like I shouldn't need more. But it's been, for me, I've had to educate myself on hunger cues because I starved myself for so long that
yeah.
I actually didn't, I stopped receiving those hunger cues. So I actually didn't know if I was hungry. So I
Mhm.
actually had to start eating more. So that then my body's like, oh, okay, we can do this with it. We can do this with
Yeah.
it. And it's so bizarre that what seems like so much food is actually so little.
It's so interesting you say that because majority of people who think that they're overeating are actually undereating, and majority of people who think they're undereating are actually overeating. And I've seen that with a lot of clients as well. And yeah, it's definitely working to improve the way that your body responds to your your hormone levels and your appetite. And with the fact that you start to eat more and you've started to work out, your appetite is building because your metabolism is improving again. And that's the point that you've got to get to realize that.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's a tough journey, because then you're like,
Mm,
am I really hungry, or is it just because I ate this amount yesterday? And it's it's to try and, yeah, like get to a place where you really understand yourself, and to be intuitive with how you are. I think it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of trial and error. And I think having that guidance and having that support that you give is monumental. I think it's fundamental. I think we need it.
yeah,
I think actually the journey, especially as women, to do this alone, ooh, like you're working up a big one. You're working up
yeah,
a big force. So I think we have to have support in some way, because there's so much unhealthiness around the thinking there. And something that I
absolutely.
would love to kind of, just before we close as well, is kind of talking about, we've talked about mindset, we've talked about the gym, and we've talked about food. How do we build these as habits, and how can we build them as sustainable habits? Because obviously we've just had New Year, it's like new year, new me, which like
Yeah,
I fully don't buy into. Because like, especially like we were talking about this the other day, what an interesting time to start a new year, like when you're in the depth of winter, you're like wanting to recluse, you're wanting to eat all these warm, like stodgy foods, and it's like, now I'm gonna go to the gym and get a gym body. It's absurd. But like,
hmm.
how do you help your clients set, and even for yourself on your own journey, set realistic and sustainable goals and habits?
So, firstly, I don't believe in New Year's resolutions either. So many people, around 43%, I think it is, actually quit the New Year's resolution before January is even up. And I think that just goes to show that people go from 0 to 100. So, I would absolutely, my first top tip is to avoid going from 0 to 100. If, for example, a client comes to me and they want to start their journey and they're like, I can go to the gym 5 times a day. Yeah, I've got time to do 10K steps a day. And I'm like, okay, but what are you doing right now? Oh, yeah, nothing right now. It's like, right, no, no, we're not doing that then. And I will actually pull them back and I'll say, I'll meet you in the middle and we'll do 3 sessions a week for the time being. And we can do 6K steps a day. So it's about starting on gradual, I suppose, foundations and building from there. Because if you go from 0 to 100, there's going to be 2 weeks down the line where something comes up, it interrupts your week, you feel really overwhelmed, and you're like, I can't do this, I can't do this, and you just quit. So we need to build habits very, very gradually. Habits take a long time to build. So you can't just expect to go from one day to the next and think, I'm going to implement 10 new habits. And by the end of this week, that's going to be my life. So when clients do start with me, I might start them very gradually and say 3 workouts a week if they're not doing anything prior, some even 1 to 2 workouts a week, depending what their history of exercise has looked like. With their steps, if they do want to work on activity levels, and again, 10K steps, that's not a magic number. It's about more so being active throughout your day and actually just working on your cardiovascular health. So if, for example, they aren't doing any steps to start with, we might just start on 5K steps and we might just work on building up some activity levels and getting out for fresh air for our mental health. And then maybe 2 weeks down the line, we'll have a review because I have check-ins every week with my clients. And I might say, okay, do you feel like you're ready for some progressions? And at that point, they might be ready for either progressions in the sessions that they're currently doing. We can make them a little bit more difficult, or they might be ready to increase their step goal or increase up to a couple of workouts. Um, so it's about very, very gradually build on your habits, completely avoiding the all or nothing mindset. If, say, you have a holiday coming up, the worst thing you can do for yourself is wait for 4 weeks before that holiday, go into panic mode and think, oh my gosh, I need to cut everything out. I need to drop my calories right down and I need to get to the gym every single day. If you are stuck in that mindset, you are always going to have a poor relationship with food, your body, and exercise, and you'll never overcome that. So you need to learn the importance of looking after your body and your mind for the long run rather than just looking a certain way or just working on a quick fix for that event that you want to go to. So avoid going from 0 to 100 and look at the bigger picture.
Mm. Oh, wow, I love that so much. That's so powerful. And I'd love to ask you a personal question, actually. I'd love to ask in terms of obviously you're supporting so many women and you're supporting them through their confidence and their journey with food, with exercise, with diet. You're still a woman yourself, you're still human yourself. How do you navigate? Because I'm sure you must still get days where you maybe feel even more pressure sometimes because you're the coach and you're like, do you experience that? And then how do you navigate that for yourself personally?
I would say when I first became a coach, yes, I felt that pressure a lot more. I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to walk the walk, I've got to do X, Y, Z. And then I don't know what it was that switch, but I just thought, I'm a human as well. And if anything, I need to show my clients that I am relatable. I'm not a robot. There are absolutely days that I wake up and I want to stay in bed with my cats. I want to have a day to myself to just relax and do absolutely nothing. And sometimes I have to honor that. But the more that we work through difficult times, and I'll get a little bit deep here if that's okay as well. I think the more that we work through a difficult situation in life, the more that we work on our mindset. Our brain needs to be worked like any other muscle that we work. And if we're going to quit at the first hurdle, like everything is so readily available to us these days, and we want to get everything yesterday. So now that we're in this kind of era, when we go through a difficult time, people are just like, no, it's too stressful. Oh, too anxious. I can't do that. And we just quit. Whereas we need to work through those times to get to the point where we're like, do you know what? This is tough. Like I feel quite low today, but I know I can show up for myself and do something. And I think for me, the moment where I got to the point where I was like, I can do this now. I feel like I can do pretty much anything was when my dad had a stroke. So a few years ago, my dad had a stroke. He was super active. He's the one that taught me how to run, how to ski from a really young age, and how to look after my body. So he's been active his whole life. And he worked in a job that he was very unhappy in for his whole career, pretty much. He was really stressed. He was amazing at what he did, but he commuted a long way every day and he wanted to wait until retirement to live his life. Just a year after retirement, he had a stroke, and that has now left him disabled. And for me, that was very hard because I had to, one, come to terms with the fact that I don't have the same dad anymore. And he, like, my dad is my role model. He's the one that's taught me everything. And secondly, I wasn't actually living in the present. And I don't think I was focusing on being happy in the moment. And that made me realize that because he'd waited his whole life to live his life.
Mm.
And then he couldn't really do that to the way he wanted to. He wanted to go traveling when he retired. And that was a really difficult time in my life. I definitely felt like I lost myself. And to have to work through that and still show up for myself and remind myself that the gym makes me feel amazing. I can count on the gym to always come out and feel really positive. Even if I was teary during my sessions, even if I had to drop my sessions down to 3 a week from 5 a week, I was still getting it done because I knew that I'd feel really good for that after it. And I think just working through that time helped me understand what I need to do to look after my own and protect my own energy, protect my own mental health and my own physical health. And the days that I now wake up and feel maybe a little bit tired or like I don't want to show up for myself, I remember that I pushed through that. And that helps me now in pretty much any day that I go through. Don't get me wrong, there's still days that are really tough. There's always going to be, but we're only human. And as long as we're doing what we can to show up for ourselves as often as we can, like I said earlier, I think that's a great job.
Mm. Wow, so powerful. Yeah, it gives you that strength, doesn't it? Sometimes when you go through those darker moments and those challenging times and those that pain, when you can actually come through that, then like you
Mhm.
say, you can call back on that and you're like, if I got through that, I can get through this. Like
Yeah,
if I can if my dad can do what he's doing now in the way that he's doing it, then like I have no excuse, you know?
absolutely.
Mm.
Because you've probably had it as well, where I mean, you've worked through recovery and you're still working through recovery, which is amazing. And you've probably had countless days where you've woken up and you've thought, I can't do this anymore. But because you've done that and you've survived 100% of your bad days now, you remember that. And that helps you build strength.
Mm.
And then even on the days that feel hard now, they probably still feel 100 times easier than that first day that you work through.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I actually have an image of myself from when I was sick to like how I am today. And
Mhm.
I've written underneath it, like, if you can do this, you can do anything. Because it's just that reminder that like when I'm feeling like this is too much or this is too tough, it's like, no. Like if I could do that, like this is
Yeah,
easy. This is a walk in the park. And it is, it's those times that really shape us, isn't it? And it's
yeah,
really interesting because sometimes it's not our own journey, it's not our own personal journey. Sometimes it is seeing what other people are navigating outside of our experience. And I was in the gym the other day and I was um I was doing a bicep curl and I was like, how am I still on 3 kg after this amount of time? You know, I'm like, oh my God, like it feels like this muscle is just so weak. And I was kind of like, I've got this, you know, and I'm doing it. And then I look over and there's a guy and his personal trainer's like helping him walk around. And this guy's got cerebral palsy. And I'm like, whoa, in that moment, I was like, what a luxury for me to be like, oh, I can't go up in weight. Whereas there's this guy, I get goosebumps, but there's this guy that is at the gym literally because of his health. Like he's there just so that he can
yeah.
hold himself up, so that he can sit, so he can walk. Then all of
Mhm.
that is just given to me. I have all of that. So what a luxury actually for me to feel like, oh, I've not gone up in weight. And that was a
Yeah,
really big realization for me because it made me realize like, wow, there are so many people that don't even have this, that don't have legs, that don't have arms, that don't have
absolutely.
this. So actually, like, it's not such a big deal. Like, why are we so fixated? And I know it's gonna happen when it's natural, it's normal because we get into our own world, but sometimes we have to break out of our own world in order to see how lucky we really are and how much
Oh,
actually it's not a
definitely.
big deal.
No, definitely. And I actually had a conversation very similar to this with my client the other day, and she said, I'm just not motivated at all at the moment. I don't want to get my sessions in. I don't want to get to the gym. And I turned around to her and I said, you are capable though. You can move your body and let's make your sessions fun. Let's make them more enjoyable for you right now because I would hate for you to quit and get further down the line, look back when you had the capability to move your body in the way that you want. And maybe in future that's not it's a harsh truth, but you might not have that luxury. And that's exactly what happened to my dad. He now hasn't got use of his right side. He's right-handed, so that's really difficult for him. And that has spurred me on so much on those harder days, because I think, yeah, but I have this luxury. It's not so much, oh, I have to go and do this. It's I get to go and do this. And like you say, that's such a luxury.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. Wow, I think there's so much more we can go into here, Kayleigh. I think we could be here for hours. I am going to open it up to questions. If anyone has any questions, feel free to type it in the chat. And before we do, is there anything else that you would like to share today? Is there anything else that we've not touched upon, or any kind of like final message of yeah, of what you're doing and what you're sharing with the world, and why you're doing it?
I would just say, remember your why. And if you are struggling to get going at the moment, remember how good it'll feel when you get there. It might feel really difficult to start, but the biggest risk is just not taking any risk. That's not going to get you anywhere. So do what you can, start very gradually, and you will get to where you want to be.
Amazing. And how do people work with you? How, if people are listening to this and they want to work with you, what do you do? What do you offer, and how can we get in touch with you?
So I provide a one-to-one coaching service, looking into fitness, looking into health, looking into nutrition, basically everything we've discussed today. And if they just message me on Instagram, which is Kayleigh evolve underscore, I believe. I should probably check that.
I'll post it underneath as well.
Yeah,
I'll post all your links.
Kayleigh underscore evolve underscore, and they can just message me and get in touch there.
Okay, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Kayleigh. Thank you for your time, your wisdom, your energy. I do have one question before we go. Kayleigh, do you ever notice clients become obsessive in an unhealthy way? If so, how do you approach this? Such a good question, yeah.
Yeah.
So seeing obsessiveness in clients, and how do you approach that?
I wouldn't say I've had any really negative experiences with clients becoming overly obsessive, purely because from the get-go I do start with educating, and before clients start with me, I do have a call with them and I do find out where they're at. If they're in a position where they are in the middle of recovering from an eating disorder, I will recommend them to another coach who specializes in that. So I'm not going to pretend that I know everything about that. But the one thing I will say is scale weight. This is probably a big thing. Literally yesterday, I had a client say, "Oh, I'm so frustrated because my weight hasn't moved in 2 weeks." And I turned around and I said to her, "But your weight has dropped by 5 centimeters in 2 weeks. Like, why are you so hung up on the scale?" So again, it just goes back to that educating. And the reason why I ask for so many things, I ask for progress photos, I look for body stats, for your weight, how you're feeling physically and mentally, where you are in your cycle, is so that I can go into these details. I would say it's more so the scale weight that a lot of clients get hung up with, but with some education, we've always been able to work through it. Um, yeah, nothing really stands out to me. I wouldn't really say I've ever had, because like I said from the get-go, I go into where clients are at, and we work through it together.
And the key is the education, right? Which is what you share.
Mm-hmm.
You share that at the fundamental. And for me, that was a huge thing is the science, it's the understanding, it's the education, because that takes the emotion away. And a lot of this is emotional, and there's a lot of feelings involved. And if we can
Yeah,
actually pull away and look at the science of what's happening, when I learned that, oh, I have holes in my intestines and my body is breaking down and my lungs are collapsing, it's like, oh, okay, now I need to do something.
exactly. Yeah, I suppose just touching on that, there have been a couple of occasions where clients have been in a fat loss phase with me, and they've got to a point where I know that they're done and they're ready to reverse out of those of the fat loss phase and start working on their strength, start building up their calories again. Some clients have been resistant to that. I wouldn't have said it's to the point where they're really, really obsessive, but they've definitely taken persuading. And again, it's just for me, I am never going to put a client through anything that's going to have a detriment to their health. So if they are at a point where their fat loss is done, and I believe they're done, they need to reverse out now and continue focusing on everything else. I will be 100% honest and I'll say, we need to start this now. And then I'll just, again, go into the science behind it and why we're doing it. And the fact that they're not going to pile all of their weight on that they've lost tomorrow. And that is the importance of going through, I suppose, the diet after the diet and learning how to maintain your results.
Mm. How long do you normally work with people for, or is it a case by case basis?
It's a case by case basis. I've got a lot of long term clients at the moment who I've been working with for a year to 2 years. Um, yeah, I'd say maybe around the 6 month mark minimum, because habits take a long time to build, and it completely depends what clients are starting their journey for.
Yeah, absolutely. That was something that I was just feeling into because I was like, yeah, it does. It takes this journey, even no matter where you are on the journey, but even just the thing of that getting over the gym anxiety, like we talked about, and then there's
Mhm.
so much in this to bring in, and then to build
Yeah.
these habits. It takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of rewiring that you're sharing with your clients as well. And something that you said earlier, which I jotted down because of how it made me feel. You talked about the smallest version of yourself, like how we try and strive to be the smallest version. And I was like, that's so interesting because that does not make me feel good. Like I don't want to be the smallest person. I want to be the best version of myself. And I'm like, whoa, how ironic that like for
Hmm.
years I've been trying to be the smallest version of myself as you put it, but that's not what I want. Like I want to be the best version of myself. I want to be the healthiest. I want to be the most conscious, the most aware, the most loving version of myself. So I really love how you phrased that because it really like it hit me and I was like, oh yeah, it's not about I don't want to be small. I'm done playing small and being small. And by going to the gym, that was something I really felt was my confidence and the actual because I have more weight to me, it's like my groundedness and my confidence. And this is something my trainer said would happen. As a woman, you actually start showing up more because you take up more space. And it's
Yeah,
actually like giving yourself permission to take up that space.
absolutely. And this is why it's just as important to work on your mental health and your mindset, because the thing that holds us back in life, 9 times out of 10, is our mind, it's not our body. And if we're in the mindset of, oh my gosh, I'm going to gain weight, and oh my gosh, that's unhealthy, you're never going to get past that barrier. So, working on your mindset is absolutely key in progressing in whatever you want to progress in life.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much, Kayleigh, for all of your wisdom and your insights. I could just continue. I'm sure that there's so much more we could delve into, but I feel like we've covered so much and you've just shared so much value. And I absolutely love what you're doing. And if you're listening to this and any of this resonated, please do reach out to us and let us know. And yeah, get in touch with Kayleigh. You've seen she is a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of wisdom in this area. So whether you're just starting your gym journey or whether you're just needing a little bit of more support, then I will drop all the links below so people can reach out to you. Thank you so much, Kayleigh.
Thank you so much.